Welcome to my channel Clarkspective.
You walk around this building and everyone is so supportive and so excited about what is happening with the Fever.
Furthermore, a statement made in Indianapolis continues to be a hot topic in the basketball community. At last, Amber Cox, general manager of the Fever, raised her voice. Additionally, her remarks on Caitlyn Clark went beyond a corporate press release. Because it was clear-cut, truthful, and full of information, it portrayed a picture that most fans had never seen. Beyond what you've read in a headline, there is more to the truth about what's actually happening within that organization. This is a multi-layered story, so hold on tight. Additionally, each layer will alter your perception of Indiana in the Caitlyn Clark era. Let's start at the beginning of the issue before we even discuss what Cox stated. No one could have predicted what would happen when Caitlyn Clark, the first overall pick in the 2024 WNBA draft, departed the stage. The basketball community knew this. At the University of Iowa, records were broken. The most popular athlete in the history of women's sports. Millions of people watched, purchased jerseys, and purchased seats. The Fever were controlling a movement rather than merely selecting a participant. That movement was accompanied by expectations, criticism, and pressure that most franchises never encountered. The front desk employees were aware of this, but theoretical knowledge and practical experience differ greatly. In 2024, Caitlyn Clark had an incredible rookie campaign. She topped the league in assists per game at 8.4 and averaged 19.2 points. In both the first and ninth seasons, she managed a Fever club that had made it to the postseason. She received the Rookie of the Year award. She was chosen for the first squad of the WNBA. In addition, she broke records for jersey sales, ticket sales, and viewership. Just the Fever's jersey sales increased by 1,193% when Indiana arrived. The arenas were fully occupied. Primetime slots were being cleared by networks. It was unprecedented in women's basketball. Tucked away in the locker room amid all of this pandemonium was a 22-year-old young man attempting to learn how to manage a professional team while taking on the obligations of an entire sport. Caitlyn Clark, but an unanticipated event put everything at risk. Everything was meant to come together for the 2025 season. Stephanie White, the new coach, put a new defensive strategy into action. They brought in veterans. There were more players on the roster. There were a lot of high expectations. However, the injury bug began to bite on nearly the first day of the season. In May, Caitlyn Clark also suffered a left quad injury. In June, I suffered a left groin injury that never healed. She then had a right groin injury on July 15th, soon before she was scheduled to return. It was over after that. She was seen wearing street clothes on the sidelines of every game. The supporters were upset. There were loud critics. There were rumors on every conceivable platform regarding her health, the team's communication, and the real situation at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Then there was the social media post on September 4th that caused everyone in the basketball community to stop scrolling. It was confirmed by Caitlyn Clark that she was finished for the year. "Disappointed isn't a big enough word to describe how I am feeling," she responded. The season had ended. She had only participated in 13 games. However, at the time, this was not receiving enough attention. The general manager of the Fever was about to speak something much more significant than most people realized. As she took the microphone, Amber Cox didn't hold back. She clarified that Caitlyn Clark had fulfilled every prerequisite for being permitted to reappear in that court. In exit interviews with the crew, Cox noted, "No one worked harder than Caitlyn." An executive defending the brand wouldn't say things like, "Nobody wanted to be out on the court more than Caitlyn." Those are the comments of someone who has observed a player fail due to no fault of her own and battle through rehabilitation on a daily basis. According to Cox's official written statement, Clark sought to make a return by working out for hours every day. She went on, "There simply wasn't enough time left in the season for her to safely return." Amber Cox made it plain that long-term health will always take precedent over a risky comeback, saying, "So, the organization decided to shut her down." But the injuries had nothing to do with Cox's most incendiary statement. It had to do with the future. Things start to become exciting at this stage. When asked about the future by reporters, Cox did not hedge. She refrained from using ambiguous language while discussing potential or possibilities. She gave them a direct look and expressed her belief that when Caitlyn Clark returned in 2026, they would witness her reach new heights. Cox replied, "I think we're going to see another level. It is unimaginable to even think of." Consider for a moment that during an injury-plagued 2025 season, this player averaged 16 points, 5 assists, and 8 points a game in just 13 games. He was chosen for the All-Star team for the second consecutive year. She dominated the national conversation about women's basketball despite just playing a little part of the season. Furthermore, the team leader asserts that she hasn't even handled a brand new piece of equipment. It's not a statement for public relations. It should be noted by the rest of the WNBA. But it wasn't just Caitlyn Clark's talent that gave Amber Cox more self-assurance. She also revealed another facet of Clark's management of her sidelines time. This is the point of the story where Clark stands out from the others. When they are injured and unable to compete, most elite athletes go dark. They can occasionally be seen at games. They wave to the audience before disappearing into the training area. That wasn't done by Caitlyn Clark. And while she was out due to injury, Clark was on that plane for all of the Fever's road trips. She was vocal, involved, and dedicated while supporting teammates in real time despite sitting on the bench during every game. Cox described her as an excellent friend and leader at a time when most athletes would have quietly accepted a reduced role. Kelsey Mitchell, who took on the offensive load while Caitlyn Clark was sidelined and scored a career-high 22 points per game, acknowledged the displeasure over Clark's timing in a podcast interview, but emphasized that bringing her back at 100% was always the best course of action. "I've had a lot of injuries because I've had 11 surgeries," Kelsey Mitchell said. "Now that I have that viewpoint, I see things differently." It was no accident that, despite his incapacitation, Clark's influence was changing how the team operated. The more you explore the Fever's locker room, the more you see that they have a true chemistry that is unmatched by any front office. The Tracy Leaches, a close-knit group of Clark, Lexi Hull, and Sophie Cunningham, were discussed by teammates. While watching from the bench, players talked to Aaliyah Boston about Clark's pre-game preparations. Kelly Krauskopf, president of the Fever, stated that the young core had made one particular request when asked about the culture of the 2025 season. They wanted their locker room to be safe, therefore they protested to the front office going after a big celebrity signing. "Protect the culture that we've started," the players said in precise terms. "You see, a team that is internally disintegrating doesn't talk like that. That is the rhetoric of a group that is aware of what they have and is unwilling to change it. However, not everyone has been prepared to embrace them. Additionally, everything was in risk of crumbling before it had a chance to breathe due to the scandal surrounding this locker room. You recall the time Cheryl Swoops ignited a match in Gil's Arena if you were watching the WNBA in late 2024. The Hall of Famer claimed that there was a lot of conflict among the Indiana Fever group and hinted that players were uneasy with Caitlyn Clark's attention. Swoops stated, "There's a lot of other stuff going on that players are like, this ain't where I want to be." The assertion quickly became well known online. For weeks, it was one of the most talked-about stories in women's basketball, complete with arguments, screenshots, and viewpoints. There was only one issue. Cheryl Swoops acknowledged that she wasn't in the locker room when questioned about the details. There was no proof. The report was not co-signed by any players. In April 2025, during a different March Madness performance, while sitting with Sue Bird and Diana Taurasi, Caitlyn Clark addressed the rumors head-on. "The folks within that facility were the only ones who truly knew the reality," she said, acknowledging that people often believe they know what goes on behind closed doors. She said that the disturbance was more related to individuals who were successful than anything that was going on in Indiana. Then, in 2025, the Indiana Fever's on-court performance without their idol was more impactful than any press conference. Consider what Indiana managed to achieve over the season without Caitlyn Clark. For the first time in team history, they took home the WNBA Commissioner's Cup. In the opening round of the playoffs, they triumphed over the Atlanta Dream. They advanced to a winner-take-all Game 5 in the playoffs before defeating the Las Vegas Aces, one of the most prominent teams in the WNBA, in overtime. They were only one victory away from making their first trip to the WNBA championships in more than 10 years. Without their most crucial player, all of that. On every bench and sides, Clark was roaring encouragement, assigning defensive assignments, and celebrating each basket as though she had made it herself. Amber Cox's opinion of her leadership wasn't only complimentary. It was true. Even though Clark was unable to show her intensity on the court, the numbers, outcomes, and spirit of that run all pointed to a franchise that had internalized it. Things start to grow serious at this point. Because the Indiana Fever, captained by Amber Cox, are hoping for more than simply a return season in 2026. A potential dynasty is what they hope for. The entire off-season was condensed into a few weeks due to the protracted talks between the WNBA and the Players' Union, which took over a year to resolve in early 2026. Expansion drafts altered the league rosters of the Portland Fire and Toronto Tempo, two new teams. Cox remained composed even though the Fever lost 2 players in the process. From the end of the season to each subsequent roster change, her message remained constant. Their first goal is to keep Kelsey Mitchell wearing a Fever uniform. "I'm going to sound like a broken record from last year," Cox said to reporters. "Keeping Kelsey Mitchell in a Fever jersey will be the top focus." With Mitchell back in the running and contracts already in place for Caitlyn Clark and Aaliyah Boston, Indiana will have the most complete core in the league moving into the 2017 season. Nevertheless, the headline did not cause the basketball community to back down. Even Amber Cox was ecstatic when Caitlyn Clark appeared as a special contributor on Basketball Night in America with legends like Tracy McGrady, Vince Carter, and Carmelo Anthony. "This will be very insightful and entertaining," Cox posted on social media. "It comes simple to me to tuck CC." NBC executive producer Sam Flood described Clark as the most renowned figure in basketball, not collegiate or women's basketball. Even before the 2026 WNBA season begins on May 8th, Clark is already working on such a platform. Furthermore, when asked about the Fever's chances of winning the championship on that NBC platform, Clark answered right away. "I think we're going to be the favorite to win it all." She said the media had little influence on that reaction. "I think it adds a little pressure, but that's what you like about it. But our coach, support staff and team are all outstanding. I'm ecstatic." After spending an entire season on the sidelines, that person had been quietly growing and simmering in desire, and now she was prepared to let go of everything she had been suppressing. And Cox's confidence in that Caitlyn Clark's appearance? This is why the entire scenario worries the rest of the WNBA. This is what the whole image tells you when you stand back and look at it. Clearly Amber Cox didn't just speak up to calm her fans' fears or handle the bad press after a lackluster season. She spoke up because she has personally witnessed what this player is capable of, experienced the chaos of the spotlight, handled the rumors and controversy, maintained unity in the locker room when injuries came from all directions, and came away from the experience more convinced than ever that Caitlyn Clark hasn't yet realized her full potential. The teammates have seen it. The coach has said as much. The GM has confirmed it. The only issue left is whether the rest of the WNBA is truly ready for what is about to happen when the team enters the 2026 season with a deeper roster, genuine hunger, and a full year of adversity to refine them into something more dangerous and tough. Because if Amber Cox is right, as the evidence suggests, the version of Caitlyn Clark that turns up in May 2026 won't look like anything the league has ever seen. Additionally, the teams that have been doubtful of this team for the previous year might want to carefully assess if they are prepared for what it actually involves. A comment made in Indianapolis has sparked a lot of conversation within the basketball world at last. Amber Cox, general manager of the Fever, raised her voice. Additionally, her remarks on Caitlyn Clark went beyond a corporate press release. Because it was clear-cut, truthful, and full of information, it portrayed a picture that most fans had never seen. Beyond what you've read in a headline, there is more to the truth about what's actually happening within that organization. Hold on, for this is a multi-layered tale that will change the way you think about Indiana during the Caitlyn Clark era. Let's start at the beginning of the issue before we even discuss what Cox stated. When Caitlyn Clark, the first overall pick in the 2024 WNBA draft, left the stage, nobody could have foreseen what would unfold. The basketball community knew this. Millions of people bought tickets and jerseys, and the most popular athlete in women's sports history broke attendance records at Iowa. The Fever were controlling a movement rather than merely selecting a participant. That movement was accompanied by expectations, criticism, and pressure that most franchises never encountered. The front desk staff was aware of this, but understanding something in theory is not the same as really experiencing it. Clark had a fantastic rookie season in 2024. With an average of 19.2 points per game, she led the league. To ensure you don't miss anything, please leave a comment, subscribe, and turn on all alerts. Once you click the video on the screen, we'll see you in the next one.